Hello everyone, welcome to my deep analysis of Persona 3 Reload. In this episode, I'm gonna go through the entire game that I just beat. This is a full remake of the original Persona 3 and also the FES version, both games released on the PlayStation 2. And yep, as you saw, this video, while not sponsored in any way, it's actually funded by people on patreon.com. I'm gonna leave a link to my Patreon in the description, and if it wasn't for them, this episode wouldn't exist. Now, you might be wondering, what is this? Well, this is a full review of the game, but also like a full analysis of the game. There's just so much to talk about it, and it just so happens that this is a big deal for me because it is one of my all-time favorite video games in existence. This is my third time playing the story and characters. Obviously my first time playing the remake, but overall my third time playing Persona 3. I beat the original version many years ago, like over 15 years ago. And about 10 years ago I played the FES version, and now today I just finished, this morning as of the recording of this episode, the remake, Reload. So this game is not connected to its predecessors at all whatsoever, nothing to do with them. And this is a game with a premise that back then, for most people, most gamers outside of Japan, it was kind of new, like I was saying. In Japan, it was nothing new. Oh, for them, it was just another, high school simulator and stuff like that. Something that people have seen before, but just not in this way. That's why the game was also successful over there, very successful. But overseas, it was kind of, well, one of the first times people got to see like all of these gameplay mechanics combined together, but also these terms, this level of storytelling. And that story is about this silent protagonist, high school student who's a transfer student, arrives in this city, and something horrible happens, something surreal, something pretty much out of the ordinary. He walks around, the town scenery changes, there's blood splattering everywhere, and a lot of people have been turned into coffins. And yeah, it's a funny idea, but when you see the game, when you play the game for the first time, because this is what happened to me over 15 years ago. When I first played it, I was like, what's going on here? I mean, it has a way of turning something silly into something serious and intriguing at the same time. And then you just walk around and look at all these coffins, and then later you find out these people have been transmogrified. That's the term they used in this game, transmogrified. Okay, and it just happens that most people, about 95 or more percent of the population, get turned into these coffins during 1 hour, which is called the Dark Hour, where only a few selected people out there who have special abilities can really know what's going on and see the city like this and the people like this. So he gets into the dorm, gets greeted by Mitsuru and Yukari, two of the main female characters here. And everything calms down after that. You get a few explanations, vague explanations. Nobody wants to tell you what's going on. And eventually you start finding out for yourself. And little by little, first and foremost, you start getting into this high school simulator. You start noticing that, the game's unusual like no other. But since this is 2024 and this is a remake, you already know these games exist. Most likely you've already played this game, the original versions. And if you haven't, I think at the very least you already played Persona 4 or Persona 5 or both. So this is nothing new to you. But you gotta understand, back then, for people like me who actually played this game right about the time it came out, it was something completely different. It was something unique. And it was like, what am I playing here? I bought the game completely blind without knowing anything about it. And once I started playing it and seeing all these scenes and walking around school and being, there's this interaction with the teachers. They ask you questions, and if you get it right, you get these points to increase some of your social stats, the academics, the charm, and your courage. And it's weird, right? I mean, the first time I played this game was weird. So I think that's one of the reasons why this game became so successful and so interesting, unique, and beloved. And of course, it spawned sequels like Persona 4 and Persona 5, which were like even bigger successes, up to the point where eventually people started trashing this game. We'll get to that too later on. But my point is the same. This is a game that it just changed the industry, specifically the role-playing industry. or most specifically the Japanese role-playing industry outside of Japan. So it's a really good story, it pulls you in, and it's one of those games, I've always said this, but I've seen a lot of JRPGs out there that have great story and great gameplay, but they are not necessarily this mixed in blend. They don't blend in together very well, or if they do, one is not just as important to the other. I don't know if I'm making myself understood, but sometimes you can play a game and not care that much about the story and focus on its gameplay mechanics. Whether the story is good or bad, that's entirely up to you. Maybe you play a game where some people say the story is great, but to you the story is generic and boring, but the gameplay is awesome. Okay, and then you go and focus on the gameplay and ignore the story, or just play it because, you gotta learn what's going on, no matter what, even if you're getting bored. But still, you love the gameplay. However, Persona 3 is a game, and the remake Reload it's no exception whatsoever. They totally respected that. I'm trying to say that the remake is, in terms of storytelling, is completely 100% faithful to the original versions. And that is the fact that both the gameplay and the story are like one and the same. This is a game where you just cannot ignore the story. And if you don't like the Persona story, the story in these games, forget about them. Because the story itself becomes a huge part of the gameplay. Some new scenes have been added to the story, some new scenes that are also connected to the gameplay mechanics. We'll get to them in a bit once we reach the gameplay section of today's analysis. So, it's a beautiful game, it's a really emotional game, a really emotional journey. You spend all the time with these characters, you spend so much time with these characters. I remember beating the original version in like almost 50 hours. FES version was longer, and this remake I just did like 68 hours, which is insane. And wow, man, I totally had a blast during those 68 hours. I don't regret a single minute, and in fact, I love this game so much that I wish it could have been longer, just as long as Persona 5, because I really like this game more than all the other Persona games. My favorite Persona game. So, in terms of story, it was really faithful. But, there's some stuff I'd like to get to, but I'm going to leave the spoilers part until the very end, and I'll let you know when I'm about to enter the spoilers section, okay? Because I want to discuss some spoilers stuff in the game, some story-related stuff, and if you haven't played the game, it might turn you off, all right? But don't worry, most of this episode, most of these videos, just going to be a non-spoiler. This is a very, very character-driven game. There's been a lot of JRPGs out there. Well, okay, JRPGs are usually character-driven, right? Most of them anyway. Especially the ones that are kind of long like this one. But this is just a very, very character-driven game. Because I'd say about 80% of the time, it focuses on the characters. While in other JRPGs, even if they are character-driven, character-focused, they also kind of focus a lot on the storytelling and the narrative. But this is like, dare I say, it's almost 100% a character video game. So I want to talk about the characters. First and foremost, the protagonist, this guy, there's something weird here going on, let me clarify. In the original versions, he had a canon name. Most people didn't know. Internet was kind of new back in the day for most people. There was barely any way to find out the guy's real name. When I played FES, I already knew, but when I played the original version, I didn't know that the protagonist had a canon name. Apparently, his canon name back then was Minato Arisato. But also, apparently, according to the PSP version and the movie, his name is Makoto Yuki. That's weird. Why will they create a character and canonically name him Makoto when there's actually a female character in Persona 5 called also Makoto? Well, I guess Makoto is a common name, but if you're creating a universe called Persona, or whatever you want to call it, if you're creating a fantasy universe, why would you have two characters with the same name? Doesn't make any sense to me. Out of nostalgia, to me, this guy is always going to be Minato. But in this remake, I didn't use his name. I used the name of this channel, Erick Landon, and I was fine with that. One thing to notice is that, unlike in the first original versions, this is just a small trivia, but you may have noticed if you play the original versions, this guy now speaks in first person. Did you notice that? I hope you did. Well, he does. He speaks in first person, while in the original versions, he was always on second person, like, you hear people talking. you decided to go back to the dorm. You decided to do this. You hear this. Someone's calling you, right? No, in here, the character speaks in first person. So while it may be just a small trivia, I think the developers had a reason for doing that on this remake. Maybe to put the characters... No, maybe to put people more into this guy's shoes and feel like he has more of a personality than before. Because silent protagonist, even though this game is full of choices and full of dialogue, silent protagonists like this one never actually talk. You just select your choice. You select your choice and he doesn't really talk. Alright? No one talks except all the other characters. So in this game, he talks to himself. Or more like he's pretty much talking to you. Like, hey, I'm getting a call from this guy. Or I decided to go back to the dorm. So I decided to buy this, I decided to do this, or I did this, or I feel like this. So it gives you more of a personal perspective on this guy, and you kind of start understanding him a little bit better. So do I think it was a good decision to have him talk in first person? I think it was, but I don't really have a strong opinion on that. All I'm saying is that to me, it could have worked either way because I've played the first versions and I got accustomed to him speaking, the game speaking to you, actually, and not the character speaking to himself, okay? But that's okay, I like this first edition, no complaints there. I don't think it affects the story at all, and in fact, I think, like I said, it benefits from it. Okay, the rest of the characters. So, we got Yukari. Yukari is a girl that's kind of like the popular girl, but also she's a bit cold. A lot of people are dying to get to know her, to talk to her. The guys have the hots for her, but she's like the cold, hard girl in school that, nobody can reach her. People are afraid to talk to her. She's hard to talk to, stuff like that. So she's that girl. And obviously, she's a bit of a... For us gamers, I don't know if it's the same in Japan. I think it's the same. But for us gamers, we probably had a classmate like that or two when we were in middle school or high school, didn't we? Girls like that, they weren't that rare, actually. They were kind of common, okay? So I'm not going to lie to you guys. The first time I played this game, I kind of hated her. I was like, man, why is she... Because she's not... This game doesn't have a main character apart from the protagonist. It's not like other Tales, like the Tales games, for example. You got your main character and the female co-protagonist, right? Not this one. Yukari is not really the co-star here, because this is also a game that allows you to choose your girl, I guess, to romance the girls, many different girls in this game, and you end up pretty much bonding with only one of them. You can't bond with them all unless you put them on the friend zone. We'll get to that in a bit. But Yukari, I just don't see her as the main character. Is she a good character though? She is. She's the kind of character you dislike automatically at the beginning for the reasons that I mentioned. Because we gamers, we usually dislike these types of people. Not just girls, guys too. We dislike this type of people in our schools. But getting to know Yukari and spending time with her and even bonding with her, if you ever decided to bond with her or follow her social link, you may have come to the same realization as I did, that she's actually a great character and she goes through some really interesting development. And at the end, you like her, and actually you kind of like everybody. It's kind of hard, at least for me personally, it was kind of hard to dislike other characters or any other character in the party, even the ones that I didn't care that much about. I ended up kind of, appreciating them near the end of the game. And it happened to me on the FES version, and it happened to me again in this version. Thus, Yukari or any of the other characters get more development thanks to the new added scenes or new small kind of like social moments you spend with them. Yes, actually, you get to know them better, and therefore, maybe if they didn't convince you in the original versions, they will probably convince you in this version. Like I said, story-wise, I think this game expands way more on the story, characters, and their development, and which is why I believe that in terms of that, it's the definitive version to play. So next is Junpei. Junpei is a dumbass character that's hard to like, but it's funny. and it's a sidekick type of character, but in this game he tries to play the hero and he tries to get attention to himself, and he's actually jealous of the protagonist. But then eventually he meets this girl, and I'm not going to spoil anything right now, but let's just say that that's when you start taking this guy more seriously and appreciating him more. Mitsuru, she's one of my favorite characters. I have a thing for this type of female characters in games. Actually, I tend to really like characters like this, like strong, badass, refined, and beautiful. Ironically, though, that's not my type of girl in real life. Damn. But, I'm a writer myself, so I tend also to create characters like this one. So Mitsuru, I love her character, I love her personality, I love everything about her, but she can also be a bit of a pain in the butt. She can also be, she's obviously hard to understand, because how many people are out there can relate to someone like Mitsuru? She's rich, she's a rich girl, and she has this attitude, this personality, this strong character, this strong personality, and she kind of intimidates most female characters in the game, including Yukari, who also starts getting jealous of her. So at this point, I want to say something else about the story and about the character interactions themselves. I think it's a wonderful game that the writers completely... How to say this? I think they spend a lot of time studying people and maybe trying to remember what it was like in high school, and trying to understand psychological issues of people or teenagers. All of these characters are between 16 and 17 years old, and what it was like back in the day, when you had these classmates, you had the troll, the bully, the dumbass, the girl like Yukari, the girl like Mitsuru. So yeah, they aren't exactly stereotypes either. That's what I'm trying to say. There are way more than stereotypes. They go beyond the boundaries of tropes we often see in JRPGs, and even some of the best JRPG stories out there have these huge stereotypes, and characters never seem to grow out of them. Well, Persona 3 is a game that does that. These characters do grow out of that stereotype, out of that trope, and they just become these multi-dimensional characters that you get to know better and relate to because you understand them. There are characters out there in other JRPGs that no matter hard as you try, you just can't understand them, not even in the end. But in Persona 3, it's like the game makes you put yourself in their shoes and say, oh, damn. And then you look at other people in real life and you realize, oh my god, I shouldn't have judged this person like this. Maybe this person is going through this, or this person behaves like this because of this experience, because of that. So yeah, the game teaches you to be maybe a better person and judge less. But, humans are judgmental no matter what. We all judge each other. And this game also shows a big part of that. So Akihiko, great guy, interesting character. I think he's the type of kind of reckless, it's hard to put a label on these guys. I was gonna say like the badass character, but not really. He's also afraid of several things, and he's also afraid of his own failure in life, or insecurities about being strong or getting stronger, not being able to protect others. He went through some real horrible tragedy in his personal life, and I'm not gonna say what, but when you find out, you're like, oh my god. And then you find more and more about this guy, and I think he's one of them. At the same time, he's one of the less relatable characters, but also one of the more easily relatable characters because of what he goes through and what he's trying to achieve in a personal level. So I've always been a fan of Akihiko. He's a great character. Who's next? Okay, so we got Aegis, who is the robot, the android girl. You get her very late in the game. Well, more like halfway. Not in the remake, of course, because the remake is so long, you're gonna get Aegis pretty early, relatively speaking. But Aegis is a personal favorite character of mine, and I don't want to get too much into her because I will need an entire video to talk about her. Maybe one of these days I'll dedicate an entire video to her. I just love this character because even though she's a robot, she ends up being the most humane character in the game. And at the end, you're like, I can't believe the development she gets. I can't believe the philosophical and psychological nature she ends up with. And honestly, it's hard to talk about Aigis without spoiling, so I guess I'm gonna leave my opinion, my deep analysis of Aigis at the end of this video with a spoiler section, because I need to talk about some spoilers to make you understand how great of a character she is. And no wonder she's become one of the most popular characters in the series. And no wonder when they made the special edition of Persona 3 Reload on the PlayStation 5, they sent her figure. Not any other character, nope, Aigis, because they know. They knew the type of character they were creating back in the day, and they know she is so popular for very good reasons. And then there's Ken. Well, I guess I should talk about Fuka first, but now that I mentioned Ken is a little boy. It's also really hard to talk about this character because he's pretty much a spoiler character. At the beginning, when he joins the party, he's like a total nobody. He's just kind of there. But then you realize what's going on between him and Shinji, another character in the game, a playable character, and what these guys go through together and what they went through, and Akihiko involved in there. It's just really interesting. Ken definitely grew on me over time, but to be completely honest, he became my least favorite character because I don't want to... I've never been a fan of kid characters in games. I don't know why. To be completely honest, I don't know why. Probably because I had a normal childhood, and on the other hand, I had a really troublesome and very memorable, both positively and negatively, teenage life, which is why I relate more. Not so much anymore because I'm an adult. I'm nearing 40 years old, but I still kind of relate more to teenagers than 12-year-old kids like Ken, right? But still, he's a good character, and well, let's move on. Shinji, I mentioned Shinji, so he's the badass, silent type of guy. He the no BS, no nonsense type of character. And I like that type of character, I try to be like that. Well, maybe not trying, more like I am like that, but on a really low level. And it's just this cool guy that it's a guy thing, I guess. Maybe girls will be able to understand too, maybe because they're kind of into those types of guys. But what I'm trying to say is that Shinji is just that stereotype, and he's the only character in the game who kind of doesn't leave his stereotype, kind of doesn't grow out of his trope, but there's a reason for that, and I'll get to at the end of the video. Fuka is a girl that I think most gamers in real life will easily fall for, because she's the nerdy type of girl, but she's also the studious type of girl, and she's not as tech obsessive or otaku or maybe like gamer like Futaba on Persona 5, but she is that stereotype. And she's also a really unique character that grows on you. At the beginning, you're kind of like, well, okay, she goes through this kind of segment in the game that seems to make you believe, the game makes you believe that she's not really a party member, that she's just another character in the story. But then they tell you she kind of is, and then the party needs her, and that's all I'm going to say. So she may be one of the most boring characters in the game, but also one of the most interesting at the same time because of the development she goes through. And that's all I'm going to say. I have a soft spot for Fuka, but she's also, as you probably noticed, not one of my favorite characters in the game, but I like her. I'm very fond of her. And last but not least, there's a spoiler character that joins late in the game, but I don't want to talk about this character until the spoiler section. Let's just say that he's one of my favorite characters, and for dumb reasons. Well, we'll get to this character later in the game. In the video, I mean. Okay, so that's it for the characters. Now, I want to talk about the English dub. And then we'll move to the graphics and music and gameplay mechanics, alright? So let me just say that the English dub in the original versions was top-notch. Every single actor did a phenomenal job, a fantastic job. They nailed it. They conveyed the emotions of every single character to perfection. And it was really hard for me to play this reload version, this remake, without feeling awkward or worried at times, because some of the actors were completely changed and kind of feels like the personality of the characters they were playing was a little bit different, but not really. At the same time, most actors nailed their jobs, and I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing. I guess I can see it from both sides. On one hand, some of them sound exactly like the original cast. Okay, I forget the names of, for example, Mitsuru. Mitsuru is a character that was voiced in English in the original versions by Tara Platt. I love that actress. And she also voices Elizabeth. Oh yeah. So in this game, she voices Mitsuru. And in the remake, well, Tara Platt was no longer Mitsuru, but she was still Elizabeth, which was kind of weird. I'm not sure why they decided to change the cast for a newer cast, which seems more inclusive, but I still think the original cast could have easily nailed their voices once again, even after almost 20 years. Because guess what? Most of the original cast is back, but voicing other characters, like Tara Platt voicing Elizabeth. So I'm providing you an example because I think the girl... So who voices now Mitsuru in this game? Allegra Clark. She has a great voice. I don't like her personally. I don't know her personally, I don't like her. But I like how she did a great job with Mitsuru, playing Mitsuru. I'm not gonna lie, the first minutes when I heard Mitsuru speaking to the main character, I was like, oh, Tara Platt is back. So I was told all the other characters had been changed, but apparently not Tara Platt, she's back. And then, after other minutes, more time passed, and I was like, no, that's not Tara Platt. So I looked it up on Google, and yeah, it was Allegra Clark. So that's just an example. You see, Junpei, same. Yukari, I already knew she wasn't voiced by Michelle Ruff. She was someone else. I forget her name, but she also nailed it. So what I'm trying to say is that almost every single new voice actor, inclusive or not, forget about that, nailed their jobs. Okay, they did a great job. But what I was saying is that it could be perceived in a positive way or a negative way. Positively speaking, yes, they sound very like the original voice actors, but then that could also be a problem because maybe all they were trying to do is imitate the other voice actors, the original cast, instead of voicing the characters on their own. But, I'm leaning more towards the other side, the positive side of things, because, like I said at the beginning, I think the developers and the publishers of this game tried to make the game, this remake, as faithful to the original as they could. Not 100%, we'll get to that later, but as much as they could, and they nailed it. Not all the actors were great. Akihiko's voice actor was completely changed. In the original version, his voice actor is Liam O'Brien, one of my favorite English voice actors of all time, and he still voices Officer Kurosawa in this game. But he could have easily voiced Akihiko again, no problem in my opinion. And now they got this Alejandro Saab or something like that. I think he voiced someone in the Castlevania Netflix series. So I'll say this: great actor, great voice. If this was my first time hearing Akihiko, I will be here saying, "Oh my God, he nailed it!" Right? But I just couldn't take Liam O'Brien's voice out of my head, and they sound so different. Unlike Mitsuru, unlike Tara Platt and Allegra Clark, these two guys, Liam O'Brien and this other guy, Alejandro Saab, they sound just completely different, and I'm sorry. I did like this new guy, and I got used to it, but man, I just wish Liam O'Brien could have been back. So not every single character had a great imitation, okay? A great actor that did a great imitation. Maybe Alejandro was like, screw this, I'm just gonna be me and play with my voice. I can't imitate Liam O'Brien's voice, which, okay, I respect that, but... for someone who played the original versions like me, and I got so used to Liam O'Brien, hearing someone that sounds almost completely different, it kind of broke the character a bit for me. But no major complaints here. That's what I'm trying to say. I didn't find a single character in the game, not even some of the smaller guys, or some of the people the friends you bond with. There are like NPCs. I didn't find a single one that was kind of annoying. Most of the acting was done professionally, and I stuck to it. I did change a bit to the Japanese dub to hear it, and it sounded just as great. But since I got so used to the English dub for this game, the previous 2 times I played it, I just had to continue playing in English until the end. So I can't comment much on the Japanese dub. Now the graphics. Obviously this game looks completely better. There's this I wouldn't say makeover because this is a game redone from scratch. It's a remake. They rebuilt everything. They rebuilt everything from scratch, and it shows. The moment you start playing the game, you get the cinematics that were in the original. Sure, some of the anime cinematics, the 2D cinematics were still there, and they were only improved. But the game has a ton, well, not a ton, but they have a wide variety of brand new cinematics instead of just scenes with dialogue boxes. You know, some of those scenes got turned into full-fledged cinematics, and they look fantastic. Though I do want to say something about the character design. In 2D, when they pop up and talk with their dialogue boxes, they look beautiful, they look amazing, and I do like this new character design. It's not too different from the original, it's still kind of the same, and they still were trying to be as respectful as they could to the original designer. So, and it shows, okay, their characters are still like flat and thin and skinny. All of them, no exceptions. But, you know what? The 3D models, they look fantastic too, don't take me wrong, but their faces look a little bit smaller or just a little bit shrunk, and they may look weird in certain cinematics. That's all I'm trying to say. It's just some dumb observation that I'm making, and I was kind of uncomfortable with it, but you know, it's okay. The fact is that they added these cool cinematics to add even more emotion to some of the scenes, and I'm telling you, some of the scenes at the end with these cinematics, especially the ending, oh man, they helped the game a hell of a lot. So, okay, the in-game graphics look perfect. They just look freaking perfect. Okay, they use the same graphic engine as they did in Persona 5, and oh man, they just look beautiful, and the interface, the UI, everything was remade as well, and it's just perfect, man. The navigation controls, the menus, they are so responsive, and well, I play the PlayStation 5 version, and the loading times are close to 0. There were barely anything, and while in the original versions, between certain scenes, certain areas, certain scenes, certain parts of town, whenever you changed towns or went from school to the next town or to the station or the mall, somewhere like that, you know, it took some time to load. You know, in here it's almost automatic. It's just almost instantaneously. Sure, that's the power of the PlayStation 5, I guess, you know, but they worked on that on the remake to make it that way, and I praise him for that. You know, it's just graphically speaking, in terms of interface, it's just, this game is awesome. It's just freaking awesome. The best thing about the graphics is the tower Tartarus itself. This is the only dungeon in the game, and it's kinda roguelite. You know, I know some of you don't like that term, but it's to make myself understood. It means that areas, every floor is randomly generated. You know, it changes every time you go back to it. Okay? And that was a cool thing back in the day. Nowadays, it's overused, but that was a cool thing back in the day to see that in an RPG. Whenever you enter the tower, every floor is different, but of course you keep making progress, and you have these teleporters which you can jump to at any time, you know, to continue from where you left off. So chances are, if you go in a straight line upwards without ever going back to the previous floors, you're not gonna notice it. But if you do, you're gonna notice that now the floor is kind of different, the layout is kind of different. But yeah, in terms of graphics, what changed the most was precisely the dungeon, Tartarus, the tower you explore. Huge tower, several hundred floors, and it's just amazing to see the makeover it got, because it looks fantastic. At the beginning, I was worried that it was gonna look dark and gloomy, and I love that, you know. But if the entire tower had been the same, I probably would have complained about it. Probably would be here complaining about it. I was like, okay, it was great in the original, and the original also changed graphics and layouts every several floors. So this game did the same, but the graphics look like their own thing in the dungeons. Like there's something, it's like they created a brand new dungeon. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's so much easier to navigate now, but we'll get to the exploration later. The music is fantastic, composed by Shoji Meguro. It's still the same soundtrack, though most of it was re-recorded. And it's resung by the same guys, well, except for one guy. Well, I don't know if it's the same guy, okay? But the guy who does all the rapping or the hip hop singing, he was kind of different in the original version. He was like in the dorm theme, for example. He's like the right, and in this one he sings normally, like some days. Okay, that bothered me. Okay, because the original, I mean, I guess I'm saying this is the better version of the song of the dorm, for example. I get that, but I got so used to this dude that couldn't make himself understood. Like he was just singing randomly, and we were all trying to figure out back then the lyrics because he was so hard to figure out. But it was funny. It was so memorable. This dumb, bulky singing, like whoa, right? And now this random dude, like he sings as if he was bored. So I wasn't a big fan of this guy, the new guy singing. The girls did an amazing job, as always, so no complaints there. Well, as soon as I started listening to Want to Be Close, the school theme, oh man, that brought back so many memories. I love that song, and I'm not really a fan of this type of music outside of video games, especially outside of Persona. So they nailed the music again. It's there. It's re-recorded. It sounds amazing, and they added some new lyrics to some songs, which was kind of confusing at the beginning. I'll admit that I got a little bit mad. I was like, man, no, this can't be happening. They changed the lyrics, no way. But then the classic lyrics, the original lyrics started being sung. So I was like, okay, so they just added some new lyrics. So that's cool. I like that. They didn't change the songs or the lyrics. So that's just great, guys. All right, everybody. So let's get into the gameplay mechanics now. We're going to talk about the simulation, the time management. There is a time management here and a time limit, which is kind of stressful, but nowhere near as stressful. They give you plenty of time to do whatever you want. And the navigation, like I was telling you, in Tartarus and in town, the school, the dorm, the social links, the romance, the side quests, and the extra quests. There are some characters that now, for whatever reason, they don't transmogrify at night during the dark hour. And since the Tartarus, the tower these characters explore, appears only during the dark hour, these people manage to get in kind of unconsciously, and you need to rescue them. It's not mandatory. They are side quests, but I did every single one of them. That's one thing I want to point out before starting with the gameplay mechanics, that, believe it or not, I did almost every single side quest in this game. Meaningless side quest, fetch quest or not. I did almost all of them, and I didn't do that in the original versions. I skipped the huge majority of the side quests in the original versions. On the FES version, though, I had to do a lot of side quests. Why? Because the more side quests you do, the more Elizabeth hangs out with you. So the high school simulation, or the life simulation as I'd like to call it, because you hang out with friends, you go and go through different situations in life that it gets out of the high school sphere. So that's always been a very addictive part of the game, because they manage it so well with short scenes, doesn't waste your time with a lot of dialogue, doesn't waste your time by making you go far to far away places or to try to find out where this or that is. You already know where everything is. Even the original versions was the same. But like I told you, the interface in this game is far superior. You get to everywhere you need to go. All the simulation is done perfectly well here and fast. So you don't feel like something is wasting your time or making things slower. It doesn't matter that much who you bond with, unless you're trying to focus on a specific girl to romance with, but that's only to get their scene when you reach a level 10. Every single character has a tarot card. The entire game is based on tarot cards. So every character has pretty much their own tarot card they are pretty much aligned with. So it doesn't matter who you bond with, but you do need to choose several of them because of the ending. Not gonna spoil much, but the more you want to you bond with as many characters as you can, but you only want to reach level 10 with one girl, only one girl. Well, except the little girl. There's this little girl called Maiko, And there's this other girl you meet online in an MMORPG based on Innocent Sin. It's pretty funny. Those are the only two female characters in this game. Well, a girl. There's also the grandma from the bookstore. So okay, there's 3 female characters you can't romance with. But all the other regular girls that are about your age, you romance with them. Okay, the more time you spend with them, the more you increase their rank, their friendship level, their social link level. And how does this affect you gameplay-wise? Remember when I said at the beginning that this is a game where the gameplay and the story are basically the same here? They are one and the same. They merged so well together that it's just as crucial, important one to the other. Well, this is one of the reasons why. Okay, because in this game you can fuse personas, you can fuse demons. In the original Shin Megami Tensei games, it was just demons. You could recruit demons and fuse them. Here, you don't recruit personas. You just summon personas. You fuse them. How do you fuse them? Well, by having only just one. And it just so happens that your protagonist is the only character in the game that can fuse multiple personas. Every other character only has one persona the entire game. And at some point, because of some emotional thing that happens in the story, their personas evolve into a new form. But that's it. You can't pretty much fuse their personas, only your character's personas, okay, which are basically demons. This is done in the same usual Velvet Room, in the same usual way as in any other SMT game or in any other Persona game, in a specific place, in a specific location, where an option is presented to you to fuse one demon with the other. However, in this game, after battle, we'll get to that in a bit, you may also get a persona for free, okay? And that's how you get more than one persona. And that's how you start fusing them and creating better personas that better suit your fighting style or capabilities and whatnot. But going back to the bonds, every time your bond ranks up, that means if you ever fuse a persona of their tarot card, it will get more experience. So for example, if you fuse one persona from the Magician tarot card with a persona from any other tarot card, and the result is by fusing these two, the result is a persona or a demon from the Strength tarot card, the Strength Arcana, that's how they call it, Arcana, from the Strength Arcana, it's gonna get a lot of experience if you bonded with the specific NPC that's aligned with the Strength Arcana. So you know what I mean now? It's pretty cool how the story, the talking, the dialogue, the simulation, the chit chat, the slice of life stuff, is deeply connected to the gameplay mechanics. I just thought that was, when I first played this game, I thought that was wonderful, a genius idea, man, and they nailed it. So that's what happens here. Okay, so how is that handled in this remake? Perfectly well. And there's some new options with the Velvet Room and the Persona Summoning. So the first thing you need to know is that there are some special fusions where if you fuse several personas, you may get one very powerful and rare and unique persona. And I'm telling you, some of these can be pretty useful, while others I found kind of okay-ish. Some of the regular personas I got in my party were more useful to me. But because it all depends what skills they learn and what skills you inherit. So going back to the simulation, that's why it's important to talk to these people, but it doesn't really matter who. It's not like, I gotta get this character, otherwise I'm gonna get into a bad route or a bad ending. No, forget about that. Even the girl you romance with does not change or alter the ending whatsoever. It doesn't matter, so feel free to bond with whoever you like more, and that's it. Now, the time management. There's a calendar system in this game, just like there is one in Persona 4 and in Persona 5. Okay, if you play those games, you already know what I'm talking about. There's pretty much a time limit to complete the game. Okay, to get strong enough and to train enough, and of course to bond with as many characters as you can, and also to learn the specific stats that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, called the academics, the courage, and the charm. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that, because in this game, you have pretty much a day to do different things. And in this version, you can also do things at night. Whereas in the original versions, you couldn't. At night, you could only end up in the dorm talking to your party members, spending pretty much, that's it. Just talking to your party members. In this remake, you can actually do things with them that won't affect their bonds whatsoever, but you may get a stats increase in these 3 things, courage, charm, and academics. Okay, by talking to them, by spending time with them, and sometimes you may get some items. You can even plant, now in this remake, you can plant stuff in the roof. There's a roof garden, oh yeah, where you plant items that can be pretty much healing items, or attack or debuff items, or stuff like that. And if you plant them and spend time with one party member, you might get better items. So it's just, the game offered extra scenes, in this game, extra story like I told you, but also extra gameplay mechanics. And it's just so much fun. It's stressful. You might be wondering, there's so much to do in this game that it's stressful. Yes, it kind of is, but that's what makes it so addicting. To try to decide what to do, how to spend your time, how best to spend your time in this game. Because like I said, you only have one day to do several things. But you can only do 1 or 2 things at once and during the same day. And you need to sacrifice all the others or do them on the next day. And it plays around with that masterfully. And in the original version, like I told you, you couldn't go out at night. And in this version, you can. You can hang out and increase these stats by talking to other people, talking to some new NPCs, and creating social links with them with different arcanas. So it's just amazing. The time management is just amazing. It gives you so much freedom to do. Whereas, as a matter of fact, you're not really that free, okay? It's a time management game, and you need to manage it well, but not as intelligently. What I'm trying to say is that, unlike other JRPGs, like some of the Atelier series, some of the Atelier games, you're not gonna get stuck or anything. You will have enough time, trust me. The game gives you plenty of time to do a lot, and I mean a lot. That's why a lot of people love these games, and that's why, even though they have these time limits, you very rarely see people or fans or gamers complaining about that, because there's just so much time to do whatever you want. And how that's handled in this game is just genius, because you are never forced to go to Tartarus except for once a full moon, and that's it. That's the only day you'll be forced to go into the tower. The rest of the month, you can just go if you want to or not. And you can just traverse the tower if you want to and reach the border floor. You won't be able to advance through the border floor until you get to the full moon and advance the story. But you can train whatever you want. You can do all your training in one session, because guess what, people? There's no fatigue system. What is a fatigue system? It was in the original versions. Your characters got fatigued. If you spend too much time fighting or grinding or exploring floors, going up floor after floor after floor, your party members will get tired. You will get tired, and the next day you will have a cold, and you will underperform in some of these 3 social stats that I mentioned. Okay, or you would just be too tired to do certain things. So, and then that will hinder your exploration in Tartarus, in the tower. You will just have to say, or Junpei all of a sudden will say, "Oh, I'm too tired to go on, so I just can't go on, man." And that's it. That party member is no longer gonna be fighting by your side, so you're just gonna have to quit and go back to the dorm and end the dark hour and the exploration. So not in this remake, everybody. It's gone. The fatigue system is gone, and I'm so glad, because come on, this is a video game. You don't need to make it that realistic. I don't like my characters getting tired. If I'm gonna grind 3 hours in a row and explore all the floors up until the border floor in one sitting, in one night in game time, I want to do that. I want to have these fatigue system restrictions, and that's awesome. In the school, the town, there's the dorm. These are the different places where you can interact with people, but there are also a lot of stores and a lot of shops. And if you buy this, for example, you increase your courage. If you sing at the karaoke, you increase your courage. If you take on a part-time job at the cafe, you actually make money, and you may increase your charm and your academics and so on. Why is this important? Well, this is important only for, one simple reason. You may need it for some side quests. Not that important gameplay or story-wise, but important nonetheless. And also the most important thing is that Yukari, Mitsuru, and Fuka are pretty much... you cannot bond with them, you can't establish a social link or even romance with them unless each of these stats is on the max level. For Fuka, you need to have the courage on the max level, the maximum level. For Mitsuru, the academics level. And for Yukari, the charm level. Okay, you can have all the other stats on max, but if you don't have charm on max, you can't date or romance Yukari. It's just simple as that, man. So you also need them for that. How is that handling this game? Perfectly well, man. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time in the original versions to reach to max all of these stats, and in this game, about halfway through it, they were already maxed. Yeah. And you also increase these stats by talking to people on your dorm, by talking to your party members and spending time with them. And this is something new. You couldn't do that before in the original versions. This is something exclusive to the remake. Sometimes you'll find someone with a smiley emoji atop their heads, and that means you get to spend time with that specific character, get to know them better, which is something I mentioned at the beginning, and then you might increase one of these social stats, which is awesome. So there's plenty of ways to spend your time in this game, and there's no fatigue system, and now you can do things at night, so it expanded more and reduced the stress of the time limit in the original versions, and it also decreased the difficulty of all this time management and all this simulation, which is awesome. Okay, so let's go back to Tartarus. Let's focus now on the actual exploration in the dungeon and gameplay mechanics. There are some new things. It's not just the graphics that change and make the dungeons look better and more easily explored. Now you can explore till your heart's content without getting too much into trouble with the shadows. There are no random encounters in this game, obviously, and the shadows were a pain in the ass to avoid in the original versions, even on the PSP version, and in here, they're not so hard, so it's awesome. Exploring Tartarus is even more fun here in this remake than it was in any of the original versions. So yeah, that's just awesome, no complaints there. Beautiful, awesome exploration, and it rewards you. Man, it rewards you with chests and several items that are breakable. These things that you break, you might get some random items. So, man, I'm gonna be completely honest. Because of this feature, I think I only bought things from the pharmacy, from the store, from the healing item store, like 2 times, I think. Because every other type of item, you get it here. Or you get it in the roof garden, in the dorm. But so, yeah, they're so easy to hoard items, and I ended up with a crap ton of items with a huge inventory by the end, and I only needed like 10% of it. Oh yeah. So yeah, in terms of that, it rewards you with equipment and items that you need to fuse personas, or items that you need for a specific side quest, stuff like that. And there's also the people that you need to rescue every now and then. Elizabeth will call you and tell you, hey, these people are in Tartarus, so you need to go and rescue them. There's a deadline to them. There's a time limit to rescue them. So yeah, you need to go and rescue them, and that's it. You know, you get things, you get goodies. So I ended up rescuing every single character. They aren't that many. I think there's like 20 or 30, max. And there's like 2 every now and then, every month, I think. So yeah, it's no big deal, and it's fun to do, and I liked it. So yeah, in terms of exploration, guys, this game is awesome. And the last thing I want to say is that there's a new feature called the Monad Doors. The Monad Doors, these red big doors, you go in them, and some have only one boss that you get to fight in order to get chests. A couple of chests, important chests, not story-wise, just cool items and cool things you need to use in the antiques bookstore. Well, in the antiques store in the Polonia Mall, and to fuse equipment and get better items, like a better equipment or better spell cards or skill cards that you can use to a specific persona and have them learn that specific skill. So stuff like that's pretty useful. So I ended up defeating almost every single door in there, every single boss in there, because after all, you also get a lot of experience. And there's also other doors where you get to fight 3 bosses in a row, 2 or 3 bosses in a row, and after every boss, it's there's other chests in there. And for these doors, you need to defeat them to be able to unlock the next door with multiple bosses. So once again, they are increasing the appeal to explore even more, to exploit the gameplay mechanics, to fight, and to enjoy the battle system, which is amazing. Now, let's talk about the battle mechanics. This is a turn-based RPG, as you already know, and in this version, as you probably also already know, you can fully control your party members, just like you did in the PSP version. You couldn't do that in the original PS2 versions. And this is a reason why the original versions got the reputation they have nowadays about being kind of unbalanced, brutally hard, especially on normal mode. If you play them on easy, I think you're going to be fine, but playing the original versions on normal or hard mode, it's a huge pain in the ass because you can't control your party members and they can do whatever they want, and often they mess it up badly and they can mess up your whole strategy. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people kind of started criticizing the game in the past several years or so. But now that this reload version is just like in the PSP version where you can fully control your party members, well, I don't want to say that it made things easier because it did, but I like to say that it balanced things out. I mean, the gameplay and the battle system and the difficulty feels more balanced than before. I wouldn't say it necessarily made things very easy, even on normal mode, but yeah, I wouldn't say it made them hard either. So I think it's a balanced game, but yeah, I'll admit, guys, for the first 10 to 20 hours, you might feel the game is too easy on normal mode. But trust me, it'll start getting more challenging, and I think you'll be fine on normal mode. No need to play it on hard, but definitely do not play this reload version on easy. So yeah, you can fully control your party members, and only your main character, as I told you before, and as you probably already know, can summon multiple personas. The good thing about this version is that you can finally select a new persona during the same turn. You do not have to wait to switch to another persona and waste an entire turn to change. So you can do that instantly. But once you've chosen a persona within that turn, you're stuck with that persona for that particular turn. If you want to change again, like a third time, you're going to have to wait until your turn comes next again. That's done so you don't abuse these battle mechanics and you don't make things more easy than what they already are. So that's it. The battle system is pretty self-explanatory. You exploit weaknesses, you exploit the enemy's weak points. Obviously, you're going to have to find out which enemy is weak to what type of magic or what type of attack. The usual strength weakness mechanic in almost every single Shin Megami Tensei game or Persona game, okay? But there's a new feature here. Remember Persona 5 and the Baton Pass? If you don't know what that is, or if you've never played Persona 5, well, let's say that whenever you exploited an enemy's weakness, you had the option to act again in the same turn, right? But in Persona 5, you also had the option to switch to pretty much cede your turn to another party member, so that party member can exploit another enemy's weakness, and then once all enemies' weaknesses have been exploited, they're all down, and you can execute an all-out attack, which is one of the highlights of this Persona series. So here it's the same. It's not called Baton Pass. Instead, it's called Shift. So you exploit an enemy's weakness, and then you cede your turn to another ally that has the magic or the type of attack that can exploit another enemy's weakness, so you can put them all down, all 2, 3, 4 enemies in the battlefield, and then perform an all-out attack. If there's only one enemy, obviously you don't need to do this, but if there's more than one enemy, different type of enemy of course, it's a good idea to do shifting. Characters have now in this version kind of like a special attack that's called Theurgy. Fuka, who is your navigator, for example, she has her own Oracle special skill, and once you activate it, she can do a massive buff for everybody, increase a specific stat or all stats, or focus the party's attack, or heal everybody, etc. Things like that. But your party members obviously have attack-focused Theurgies, and once you activate them, what they do is perform a special attack, a regular special attack. What are the conditions for these special attacks to meet or to be executed? Simply, fight enemies, exploit weaknesses, and receive damage, and that's it. I mean, the better you perform in battle, the higher your chances of executing a special attack within that same battle. Usually I leave this for the boss battles, of course, or for the elite monsters, the powerful monsters wandering around, or in the monad doors that I explained to you before. Yeah, it's a pretty nice addition, and the best thing about these skills is that they aren't bound by strengths and weaknesses, okay? Even if an enemy is resistant to ice, for example, your character's still gonna do some damage, it's going to ignore resistances. That's the great thing about these theurgies, these special attacks. Overall, it's an amazing battle system. It's simple yet engaging, easy to understand, with a few additions, with a few twists in there that you can exploit, like the all-out attacks to make things better, to make things more engaging. Nowadays I think it's necessary to be more creative as a developer, to keep the player entertained and offer unique ideas, even if it's based on something simple. Just offer those little twists, the devil's in the details. Once you execute these details in the Persona 3 way, it just makes battles more engaging and more fun. Okay, it's a great battle system, just like in Persona 5, and I freaking love it, guys. I love these battle mechanics. I think it's a perfect battle system, and I'm so glad these developers really thought things through to make it even more entertaining. As you've been seeing, every time you win a battle, you get these cards, right? You get to choose between cards. Funny how the randomizer shuffle mechanic from the original versions is gone. Previously, the cards will shuffle blindly, and you couldn't know what was going to be on the other side of the card once you made your choice. In here, you can see all the cards right there, and all you have to do is choose. Well, okay, that took some of the fun away, but also that took some of the stress and frustration away, because before, if you picked a card that you didn't want, it was kind of like a waste. If you pick a persona you already had, that card was totally wasted. And in here, if you pick a persona that you already have, that persona gains experience. So that's great. The game rewards you no matter what you choose. You can choose between skill cards, more experience, more money, and eventually more tarot cards that influence your exploration. That if you pick one card, you get an extra card, or you increase some of your stats, or your next social fusion your next persona fusion in the Velvet Room, it's gonna get more experience, stuff like that. So that was a great addition, and once again, you have now a great battle system that rewards you even more for winning battles. So it creates some kind of addiction. That's what I'm trying to say. This game is stupidly addictive now, and I had a total blast, guys. Can I give you any tips about Persona Fusion? Not really. I think I'm the wrong guy for that, because I usually have the personas I like with me, and I have a confession to make. When it comes to Persona games and also Shin Megami Tensei games, I usually base most of my personas to magic. I give priority to magic. Sure, I'd like to have at least one persona that has a lot of strength or a lot of agility, so their turn can come faster. But yeah, for most of my personas, I usually have magicians, and the higher the magic, the better for me. That's how I fight, that's how I roll. You might find the different strategies. You might prioritize agility or strength or endurance. I don't know, up to you. You can have your own playstyle, but the best advice I can give you is to have a variety of personas that focus on different things. Okay, because there will come a time when you're gonna fight an enemy that's immune to magic or immune to physical attacks or resistant. So you're gonna have to rely on the persona that's like strong in magic or strong in physical or strong in defense and endurance and whatnot. You get the idea, right? So the best tip I can give you is always have a bunch of personas that focus on different things. Don't be like me. Don't hoard personas that focus on magic. But like I told you, at least I have at least one extra persona that focus on physical or endurance or any of the other important stats. Alright everybody, that's it for the review actually. I'm gonna go now into the spoiler section. I want to talk about the censorship, and I want to talk about some things that made an impact on me, but I'm gonna have to discuss certain spoilers. So if you haven't played the game or you don't want to get spoiled, I guess this is it. It's a warning, spoiler alert, and I guess thank you for watching everybody, and see you next time. Okay, the spoilers. When I started this video, I explained the story to you, but I didn't quite explain it properly, didn't I? I forgot to say that this is a game about an organization that has special powers, the ability to summon personas to fight demons. Because if they don't, the Tower of Tartarus, is eventually going to turn every single human being into the lost, into something that the real world refers to as the apathy syndrome. It's pretty much going to destroy civilization and humanity. So that's why these characters fight to destroy these shadows and put a stop to it. And their goal is to make the Dark Hour and the tower disappear entirely. Okay, that's not a spoiler. But the spoiler thing about this that I want to discuss is that how that makes a huge impact on the character's psychology. And that's something really rare in video games. Whenever you play a JRPG, in most cases, they don't discuss this. They're like, okay, so we're going to have to fight these monsters in the overworld, in these dungeons, and blah, blah, blah. But in most JRPGs, characters act as if that was normal. That was everyday life, that they'd known that from the beginning. And oh yeah, it's totally normal to pick up a sword and fight enemies and blah, blah, blah. Right? So it's funny. But that's how it is. But in this game, it connects that to the characters' feelings. They start getting tired of it. They start questioning their reality. They start questioning their philosophical approach to the tower. They don't know much about it, and eventually start questioning themselves. So I like that, I like the fact that there's characters out there who start saying, okay, maybe we shouldn't kill the shadows, or maybe we should kill all of them, or maybe we should just quit doing this. And how that affects every character's character development and their psychology and their relationship with other characters, that played a major role in the impact this level of storytelling had on me. So that's why this has one of the best stories ever written, in my opinion. It's not that original anymore because we've seen this before in Persona 4, in Persona 5, and other SMT games. But when I first played this game, I was like, this is like no other story that I've seen before. The closest that I could think of back then was not even Final Fantasy. It was more like about the Tales series, for example. I was completely hypnotized by by this level of storytelling and this uniqueness. Like I said, I know nowadays it's not that unique, but back then it sure was. So my favorite characters were Aigis is my favorite character, and then Mitsuru, and then Koromaru. Koromaru is the dog. That's the spoiler character that I didn't mention at the beginning. It's not that big of a spoiler. Everybody knows there's a dog as a party member, and you've been seeing so far a dog in my party in some gameplay footage that I've been showing you. But I didn't want to talk about him at the beginning because this is a character that you get kind of late in the game. And the explanation they give for this character that has the ability to summon a persona is kind of dumb. I've always believed that. I'm going to start with that, as my first complaint with the game, that how can all of a sudden, as much as I love Koromaru because he's a dog and he's really freaking smart, obviously he's a special dog, it doesn't make any sense that he can have the ability to summon a persona and control it at will and know what he's doing. So that means the reasoning level of this character, should give him the ability to speak and to think like a human being. And because, it's all about, the personas are about personalities and are about your psychology, your emotions and whatnot. And yes, I know all of that can be applied to an animal, but not on this level. So that doesn't make any sense. And I've always found it funny how they kind of don't really explain it properly because they know they can't, because they know it doesn't make any sense. And same for Aigis. She's an android. She's obviously a superly advanced android, which kind of makes Persona 3 a science fiction game now that I think about it. Because, this is a game that takes place in 2009. And it's 2024 right now, as of the recording of this episode. And we have no androids like that walking around or being used as military weapons and whatnot that can have like this level of personality. Like Aigis is a very humane type of character. She reasons, yes, she talks a bit like a machine, but yeah, she kind of like walks around, thinks, has feelings, emotions and whatnot, and her expressions are human-like. So that doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, I guess Persona 3 could be considered as a science fiction game. Now that I think about it, because of Aigis alone, because of the overly advanced, super powerful dog that can summon personas. Okay, I'm not gonna try to ridicule the story. I'm just saying that doesn't make any sense, but it's part of the charm. Sometimes when you write fantasy, there's always going to be something that doesn't make any sense. I mean, for starters, it doesn't make any sense that a human being has the ability to summon demons at will and control them to fight enemies and shadows and shit. I mean, yeah, come on. We're overthinking this. Anyway, so Aegis gets the best character development in the game, in my opinion. The best one. She breaks my fucking heart at the end, man. She is one of those characters that, there's a scene. Okay, now you can bond with her. You couldn't do that before. You can romance Aegis. That's right. You couldn't do that before in any of the other versions. There was no social link with her. You can romance Aegis and make her your girlfriend. And that's exactly what I did. So Aegis is a character that near the end starts explaining to you how much is weighing on her the responsibility of protecting her friends and protecting people and protecting specifically the main character. There's a reason for this, and I like the explanation how Death, this little kid you meet at the beginning of the game, Pharos, eventually you learn his name is Pharos, he evolves into Ryuji halfway through the game, and once Ryuji realizes who he is, because apparently he has no memory of who he is, and the main character doesn't seem to recognize him, and then Aegis does. She doesn't quite recognize him, more like she knows he's dangerous and there's something really off with him, and then near the end, she kind of remembers who he is. So Aegis remembers that she fought him before, and she didn't defeat him, more like she sealed him, Death, inside the main character's body and mind. So that's why the main character can see Pharos at the beginning of the game as a little kid, and then Ryuji is all of a sudden a real person out. He pretty much came up with his own body for no reason. They never go deep in that, They never really explain how the hell did all of that happen, how the hell did Pharos got out of my character's body and then grew up into a 17-year-old looking kid who's now a transfer student, and nobody questions that. Nobody knows where he comes from. Not even he. He's like, where do I come from? Who are my parents? What am I doing here? It doesn't make any sense. They never explain that. But they rather focused on the relationship between this character and the group, the party members, and specifically Aegis. And that's a huge part of the character development that Aegis gets that made me fall in love with her. She is... let's just say, let me put it this way. This is a character that goes through the ordeal of, she goes through this emotional crisis that most human beings get. Well, not most of them, a lot of human beings get, no matter where they come from, when they reach a certain age. When they're like 16, 17, they start wondering about the future, okay, about what they're going to do. And this game plays around with that too. There's like a career counseling episode the characters ask themselves what they're going to do in the future after they graduate, if they're going to go to college or if they're going to get a job, blah, blah, blah. But for Aegis in particular, she's very self-aware that she's a robot and that she knows, she accepts the fact that she can never be a human, and so she needs to accept who she really is. And that... Well, okay, the first thing that I want to say is that anybody can relate to that, It's hard to relate to the other characters sometimes because they go through specific parts, like Akihiko, for example, and Ken. They go through all of this ordeal that Akihiko's sister died, and Ken's mom died as a result of Shinji. His persona goes out of control at the beginning, and... as a result, he accidentally kills Ken's mother, and Ken starts resenting him. So, okay, that's a great scene, tragic, deep, and I like it, I love it, but I can't relate to that. You know what I mean? I can't relate to Shinji. I can relate to Shinji in the terms of being an outcast and not being able to control a certain ability. I was like that. I'm not really a prodigy kid or something like that. Forget about that. I'm not trying to say that. But let's just say that I had this way of thinking and way of being when I was in high school, and I was pretty much an outcast, and I became a little bit like Shinji. That silent type, the unhappy guy, full of regret, full of resentment, and angry and edgy. I was that guy. Maybe I still am. But the situation that I explained to you, that him going out of control and killing someone's mom, or Ken, for example, having someone kill my mom accidentally, I can't relate to that, And most of the character development these guys go through is precisely because of that tragedy. Same with Akihiko being an orphan and all. So I can't relate to that. But Aigis, even though she's a robot, and nobody can relate to a robot because we're all human beings, the development she goes through, that's, like I said at the beginning, the most humane character in the game. She's so easy to relate to because she starts questioning all these everything in life about growing up, about who she's gonna be, what she's gonna do, and coming to terms of who she really is. So Aigis should be a perfect example of that. She's a robot that at the end she's like, I'm a robot and nothing's gonna change that. I could never be a real human being, but I have a heart, I have feelings, I have developed these bonds with my friends, and I have developed this special relationship with you, the main character. And man, the ending, it breaks my heart. This is a game, I'm gonna spoil the ending. I warned you before, let me warn you again. If you haven't finished the game or if you haven't played it, I'm going to spoil the ending right now, so get ready. Okay? Fine. So I'm not gonna show the footage of the gameplay to avoid spoilers. Instead, just these random images you're seeing right now of Aigis. That's what I'm gonna show, but I will talk about the ending. So this is any version, no matter the version you play. At the end, during the final boss, they realized that there's no way to kill Nyx. She's impossible to kill. This character, the final boss, is pretty much death himself or herself, and she cannot be killed. That's impossible. Okay, so the only thing the main character can do at the end is pretty much act as a seal. So what happens? He acts as a seal, and a couple of months later, he's still alive, all's well, and blah, 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 but he dies. Okay, he dies. They do give you an explanation why he dies, and it's an explanation that's not that impactful. You're kind of like, oh, he sacrificed himself to save the world, right? Yeah, classic JRPG cliche. But, when they defeated Nyx and they sealed her, everybody lost their memories except for Aigis and except for your main character. So when they go back to school, the next day after defeating Nyx, they don't remember anything, and it takes them like a couple of months to remember everything. You don't go gameplay-wise through those couple of months. The game just skips. There's a time jump 2 months later after that. And there's a day before where you can wrap things up with every character you bonded with, every character whose social link you maxed out. So there's a couple of scenes with them. And then at the end, everybody starts remembering. That's the ending sequence begins when everybody starts remembering what they went through, that they know each other, that they're friends, the bonds they developed. And then Aigis and the main character are waiting for them on the rooftop of the school. And there's just Aigis comes to that realization that I'm not going to talk about it because that's probably going to start crying right now. But that's one of the endings that made me cry. Not that much, though, because I already knew what was going to happen, but yeah, you bet your ass, the first time I played this game, I was in tears. I was like, no, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, he's dead, he's really dead, because how they play this scene out, and now in this remake with the cinematics, which gives this part of the game much more emotion, he's just laying on her lap, and as soon as he sees his friends arrive, damn. He closes his eyes and he can now finally rest in peace. And that's a heartbreaking ending. But when I first played the vanilla version, the original version, I was like, I didn't understand. I was like, what did he die? What happened here? They don't confirm that. It's not like they make a scene where the characters react and say, oh, he's dead. Oh, that's sad. No, it's like they leave you wondering what the hell happened, right? But you look it up online. That's what I did, and yeah, it turns out he was dead. So now you get to the FES version, which has the answer. That's an epilogue, pretty much like a continuation of the game, a direct sequel, and it's its own game, guys. Remember Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna? Wow, this is its own game. I'm surprised. Well, it did get a physical release in the FES version, but now for this remake, it was a DLC. It's a DLC. You're going to have to pay for it, and it's digital and whatever, but you guys know already that next year or in a couple of years, we're gonna get Persona 3 Reload Royal Edition with all the DLCs included and blah blah blah. They're gonna make us pay the same game again. Pay for it again. That's Atlus nowadays for you. Anyway, so that's beside the point. The point is that the answer is its own game. It is very recommended. I wouldn't recommend paying for it right now because it's like, I think it's $35, and that's too much. That's what I would normally pay for a physical video game, right? Not a digital game. But that's just my opinion. If you want to buy it based on my recommendation, do it. It's your money. I wouldn't recommend it. I would wait, if I were you, for the price to drop. But if you want to pay $35, up to you. It is very recommended, especially if you're a fan of Aegis and you want to see what happens later. Because there's no resolution here. The character dies and that's it. That's the ending. No, there's got to be some resolution. And instead of being just a 2, 3, 4 hour long episode, it's a full-fledged video game that's like 30 hours long. Okay, so it's very worth it. You are purchasing a game, a video game, not just an extra DLC. And if you play the FES version, you realize that you're like, there's 2 games in one package. And this review is not based on the answer, so I'm not going to cover it. But all I want to say is that it's very recommended, and you do get a resolution, and you get some really intense and amazing character development in there. It's such an awesome game. But keep in mind, there's no more simulation. No social links, no dating sim, no going around town, no the usual average day and night system we saw in the original. No. It's pretty much a dungeon crawler now. So that's all I'm going to say. Play the answer. It's awesome. But yeah, now you understand why Aegis is my favorite character, because she's not only deeply connected with the main character, but she's the one that gets this emotional and psychological crisis of trying to find who she really is and trying to come to terms with that and trying to better herself as an android or as a living being, as a creature, right? She's not 100% artificial, you know. The last thing I want to talk about is the censorship. Censorship is a delicate matter nowadays, especially on YouTube. So I'm going to try to not rant about it, but I will rant about it someday in the future, in another video perhaps. All I'm going to say is that people made a big deal out of, there's a certain scene that was censored. I'll get to it in a bit, but they were saying that it has less blood, and when the characters shoot themselves in the head to summon their personas, there was some censorship in there. Well, all I want to say is that I saw nothing. I will have to make a comparison, right? Like really check it out and see if things were really altered. But as you can see, there's still blood in there. There's still blood in Tartarus during the Dark Hour. Characters still shoot themselves in the head when they're gonna summon a persona. Koromaru doesn't shoot himself. Of course, a dog, he can't do that. But even Aegis does that. So yeah, the animation's still there. So I'm not sure what's the big deal. And if they censor something really, really, really small, you know, I'm all against censorship. I hate censorship of all kinds. But this is just ridiculous, man. It's just dumb. I wouldn't bother with it. And like I said before, the story wasn't altered. I didn't notice that because I was really paying attention to that. I pay a lot of attention to that. You know, I'm against any kind of censorship, whether it favors the minorities or the majorities. I don't give a rat's ass. Any kind of censorship is like unjustified for me. But I didn't see any alterations. But then again, guys, I played the last time I beat Persona 3 was on the FES version, and that was 10 years ago. Sure, I did play the PSP version several years later, but I never finished it. Okay, the only versions that I finished are the original PS2 versions and now this remake. So it was hard for me to notice which dialogue was altered for the sake of censorship or for the sake of avoiding offending certain people. You know, I didn't notice anything. Please let me know in the comments if you noticed something like that, because I didn't notice anything. But the one scene that I did notice is the scene at the beach. So the characters go to the beach at a certain point of the game, and Akihiko, Junpei, and the main character start playing this dumb game of trying to hit on girls and that they see on the beach, and they approach some and they play something stupid. You know, it's a comedic scene. It's a comedy scene. It's there shouldn't be anything offensive in there. So eventually they come across this character you're seeing right now in the remake, who, as you can see, is a woman, right? She's also kind of a woman in the original versions, except in the original versions, it is hinted that she is a transsexual. And once the characters realize that, they run away. They panic and run away, right? So yeah, nowadays you can see what the big deal is about. That scene had to be altered to avoid offending the minorities. And there was a bit of an outrage because of this scene. So I'm gonna say this: I abhorred this censorship. The scene was originally funny, and it's meant to be funny. It isn't meant to be offensive. But nowadays, it seems companies want to alter every single thing that offends the minorities. All the sexy outfits that the girls have in the game, that's fine. I mean, that's fine for me, of course. But I don't know, why isn't a lot of people making a big deal about that? I can't believe Atlus is that stupid enough to alter just one scene and don't censor all of everything else that might be perceived as offensive. I mean, isn't that just dumb? Really? Like, why alter this one scene but leave everything else out? But you know what? I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it because it's just one dumb scene that doesn't affect the story whatsoever. It's just there. Why make a big deal out of it? Leave him. Leave him alone. It's just, censor your scene so you don't offend the 0.00001% of society. Yeah, do that, Atlus. Bravo. Good for you, you freaking social justice warriors, It doesn't matter. It's just a really small scene that's completely irrelevant to the story. If they were altering like an important scene, like the Aegis character development though, I will be so mad. This episode wouldn't exist, and instead it will be a rant against the game and against the company. But I didn't notice anything like that. So if you notice anything like big story-wise, like they altered a certain scene, like a big important story scene, let me know. Okay, guys, so that's all I wanted to say. This episode, this analysis has been too long, and it could have been way longer. There's just so much to say about certain games, and I know even though this video has been too long already, trust me, I missed a lot of things, and I know you know that I missed a lot of things, and I didn't mention certain things. I could go on about the story and the characters themselves and the development forever. If in case you want to know, my final party was obviously the main character, you cannot remove him, Aegis, Koromaru, and Mitsuru. Okay, and is that the best party? I don't know. That's the party that worked for me because those three are my favorite characters. I don't have any preference to like, this Yukari is pretty useful because she's the healer, so I gotta have Yukari in my party because of that. No, I mean, I like these characters. I usually have at the end of a video game, of a JRPG, the characters that I like the most, even though they might not be the best ones out there. But then again, the best ones is entirely subjective. You can make most characters in JRPGs stupidly overpowered if you want to. My Mitsuru was a magic snob, and man, she was the most powerful magician in my party, even more so than my main character himself. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright, everybody, so that's it. Thank you very much. If you made it this far, holy crap, thanks a bunch. I hope you enjoy this episode. Whether you watched through the whole video or watched it in parts or just listened to it, it's fine. I hope you watched the video because there's a lot of editing in there, a lot of gameplay footage. It's meant to be watched, but it's okay if you just used it as some kind of podcast, I guess, and listen to it. That's also fine. So whatever the case, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and thank you to the people who made it this far. I really appreciate it. Persona 3 Reload, stupidly recommended. This is a must-play video game, no matter the version. Every single version is fine. There has never been a bad version. Yeah, I know the remaster of the PSP version that came out last year is supposedly the worst, but it's still decent to play, it's still okay. There's not that many technical issues. People made a big deal out of it. It called it, wow, this version is trash. It's not, man. It's a good version, but you have Reload now, which is, in my opinion, the definitive and best version to play, even with the stupid, unjustified, and silly censorship in there. Forget about it, just focus on the game. You got a great story here that's almost completely unaltered, and still the same story, the same character development, that's just as amazing as it was before. And yeah, amazing gameplay mechanics, amazing battle system. This is a must-play. Masterpiece. It's the same freaking masterpiece, and it's now an improved masterpiece, like a perfect masterpiece. Persona 3 Reload, everybody, and that's it. Thank you, and I guess I'll see you next time.